thankful as well, because a lot of guys through this process end up getting depressed, and you see these stories about, things that are happening. And I can honestly say, feeling at 7 on in the fall, on October, on a Sunday at 1 p.m., and you sitting down on a couch and you just like, why do I have all this energy? And it's just like, dang, you would have been playing at that time, and having to figure out what to do with all of that energy, trying to figure out what to do with all of your time when you were playing from the time you were 5 up until, a moment when you're 20 or 30, or whenever you get done playing. Nobody is exempt. It happens where you have this moment of like, okay, there's people around that weren't around before, or people that aren't around before that were around before. The cheering is kind of like come to a halt a little bit in terms of how people may respect you or care about you or quote unquote love you, because now, the game is not there anymore. So it's important for people to not put their identity so heavily in it. But for us, in playing that long from the time we were kids, it's kind of hard not to. But I think that as going forward, people should definitely be thinking about who they want to be after they're done.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Penny Hart. Penny, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. What's going on?
Hey, man, I can't complain. It's been a good day. It's been a good week.
Yeah, that's what's up. Easter weekend coming up too. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just making plans for that, and it's one of those times I love holidays like that because I kind of have time to reflect and kind of be around family and all that good stuff.
Most definitely, man. It's a little additive too. Shout out to my little sister. She having twins coming up, and the baby shower is on Saturday. So shout out to her. Her and Chris.
Congratulations, that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, man, I always like to kick off the show and talk the importance of networking because you really never know who you'll meet or how you'll meet them. How are we
Yeah.
originally connected?
Man, so Dr. Taylor, I did his podcast about a few weeks ago, and me and you just ended up connecting from that, and talking about when the episodes will be coming out, because you produce and help him do his thing. So, and then next thing you know, we here right now. So pretty cool.
It really is, man. And of course, as we talked before, that makes a logical connection. I work with Taylor and produce this podcast. So, of course, we're going to have some kind of interaction. But once I
hmm
started listening to your episode and I realized that you went to Georgia State and I used to live in Atlanta, one of your old teammates was actually one of my teammates down in Atlanta, Mitch Shea. So, I always got to shut
Yeah,
out Mitch.
yeah. Shout out to Mitch, man. That's crazy. That's pretty crazy, but small world.
It really is, man. And it's one of those things where I always encourage people to get out there networking. Networking is just another word for building relationships because you really never
hmm
know who you might meet, where you might meet them, and how those interactions can unfold, whether immediately or down the road.
100%. Yeah. I think a lot of people, especially now, I just find it kind of weird that as I've gotten older, people actually don't talk. Like, you go about your day, like people are just going about their day, don't try to talk to anybody, don't try to connect with people. It's actually kind of weird, especially now everybody got AirPods in, walking down the street. You know what I mean? I walk by people, they don't really say nothing. It's just like, but you never know who you're coming across. I might as well spark up a conversation.
Absolutely, man. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. It's one of those things where I just love. I think I'm from the Midwest, so honestly, we talk to everyone all the time, 24/7.
What part of the Midwest?
Milwaukee. Okay.
My family is all from the south side of Chicago.
Okay, okay, that's what's up. That's
Yeah.
what's up. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a couple hour drive.
Yeah. Yeah. Midwest gang, everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Always, always,
Shout
man.
out to the Midwest. I never been there in the wintertime, thank God. Uh, except for probably a couple games. But other than that, I have not been there when it was snowing. Thank God.
Man, it's a whole new experience. People
Yeah.
down south when I lived in Atlanta would always say things like that, and then I survived my first couple of summers down in that heat, and that was a new
Yeah.
experience for me, man.
Yeah. That humidity get to touching that skin and it's all thick on you and they don't get up off you. So yeah, it's a whole different ball game.
Man, it's all part of the experience, though. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
I like to kick off the show and ask you that comic book issue number one, that origin story. Who's Penny Hart?
Man, Penny Hart is a God fearing man, courageous, virtuous, wise, funny, um, you know, trustworthy, faithful guy who had the privilege of playing 5 years in the NFL, getting a full ride scholarship to Georgia State, my only offer, and being able to do some really special things with that pigskin man running around a little bit, um, and just enjoying life and being able to be an example of what it looks like to just work hard and dream, you know what I mean, make dreams come true, and just being a human that just sees life through the lens of I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And even though everything isn't all beneficial, the things that I have brought to the Lord and allowed him to use me to do have been a blessing and a privilege. So, a brother to three sisters and a brother, and two beautiful parents, 30 years of marriage, you know what I mean? Grew up in Roswell, Georgia, from the Midwest, you know what I mean? South side of Chicago, born in Harvey Hospital, you know what I mean? Just one of the guys, man.
Penny, that's awesome. It's one of those
Mhm.
things where you mention your family, and I've realized not everyone does on this podcast always, different relationships and different things like that. But I'm
Right.
fortunate coming from a family that there's a lot of love there, and so I appreciate you, shouting out your folks and your sibling.
Yeah, most definitely, man. That's the game, man. That's them all my twins.
So, man, did you always play football, or how did that journey start?
Yeah, man. So just being in the back of the backyard, well, not the backyard. We live in an apartment complex, but for the most part, but you know, just being in the neighborhood playing football. And my first love was basketball, and my older brother, he loved football. And it was just like, you the younger brother, you following on your big brother everywhere. So you know he get to playing football. I was like, let me play too. So I ended up playing with a lot of the older kids all the time, and I started realizing that I was doing some stuff. He 4 years older than me, and I'm out there, doing what I got to do, taking care of business out there on them. So it was just like, you know what I mean? Like I really enjoy this. And I remember I was 8 years old, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the NFL. Like that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I want to do with my life. And it kind of just it took a road of its own from there.
So, did you start playing organized sports right away? Because it's one thing to say you want to go to the NFL when you're 8. How did you
Uh-huh.
start creating that blueprint?
Yeah, like when I was 8, my dad had put me in flag football because he was like Barry Sanders when Barry Sanders was younger, he played flag football. My dad, he would always have me watching Walter Payton, Earl Campbell, and Barry Sanders and Gale Sayers highlights. But he was like Barry Sanders is like more your size, like he's a smaller guy, he's shifty, and he played flag football. And I was like, all right, bet, let's go play flag football then. So that's what I did. I remember it was for the Texans, for the YMCA, at Newtown Park over in Johns Creek, Georgia. I think that's the new city that it was called at the time. But um, and I wore number 7 for Michael Vick. And first game we go out there, we end up losing, and I just remember crying like just pitching a fit on the field, just crying and screaming. We played the Dolphins too, and it was one other kid over there who was just bawling. But I would just remember like losing that game, crying, being sick to my stomach. They picking me up because I'm, crying because we lost. But yeah, I started out playing flag football, and then that next year I ended up playing flag football again for a team called the Seminoles. We was named the Seminoles YMCA again. Played for them. You know what I'm saying? Doing my thing. And I remember it started being like, people start knowing who I was in the league, and you got really good teams that were stacking up all their players, and they're like, hey, like we should have Penny come play over here. And I was like, nah, like I'm stay over here. I want to compete against y'all. And we never beat those big teams, but from that, flag football experience, it helped me with well, I don't even know if it helped me, but it allowed me to, go out there and be more agile and be more shifty. And using my feet and just getting away from people and just working on my speed and stuff like that, just seeing what I had and enjoying football, having fun playing in a bunch of different positions. So yeah, man, it was cool. It was something that a lot of my friends, we all did together, and yeah, man, it was fun.
Penny touched on some important things. One, the fact that you kind of got to freestyle your play a little bit because it's flag football, so it's not as rigid as
Mhm.
maybe some of the tackle programs and things like that. But also, you
Yeah.
mentioned you had fun and you got to do
Hmm.
it with your friends, man. It's I
Yeah.
think that's very underrated sometimes.
Yeah, it was real cool. I remember one of my teammates, his father had a red drop top Ferrari. And his dad was the coach of the team. And I just remember being like, all right, like when I get to the league, I'm gonna get me one of those. Like, and I was just like, look, I just need to get in it. Let me ride with y'all one day just to get in. And I was like, all right, bet. Like, just feeling that moment. I remember so many distinct moments. I remember too, they used to call me Little T.O. in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Just all those small things that were affirming exactly where I wanted to go. But along with enjoying myself, I was, like I said, I was studying from a young age. You talking about a 8-year old looking at Gail Sayers highlights, and you know what I mean. I don't think nobody, at that age, nobody knew who Gail Sayers was. A lot of people don't know who he is to this day, but it just goes to show, like, I was really committed. I was fascinated. I was entertained. I was curious, and on top of all of that, as I progressed through going to play tackle football, it was just like I knew that it was something special that I had, and I could just embrace that talent and make something of it.
So, Penny, you get to high school, and I assume you're playing tackle football at that point. When
Yeah.
did the thought or possibility of college actually start becoming a reality? I should say playing in college.
Yeah, and when I was 9, I was like, "Yeah, I wanna go play in college." Like, when I told myself I wanted to go to the league, I was like, "Okay, what do I have to do? Oh, I gotta go to college first. Alright, bet. How I'm gonna do that? Well, probably need to get a scholarship." It's me and 4 of my other brothers and sisters, like, you know what I mean? Based on circumstances, I know my parents wouldn't be able to pay for college, and debt don't sound too good. Like, this is me at a very young age processing this and getting information on what I needed to do. And it was like it happened very fast for me to make that decision and knowing exactly what I had to do. And I remember I was like 9 years old, and my mother, she was just like, "Yeah, Penny, like we ain't, we don't have money for for a college or anything like that." So it's just like, all right, bet. Like, appreciate you telling me. Let me keep just figuring this thing out, seeing what I got to do to make this thing happen. So I was like, as long as I'm good at football, I will get a scholarship. So going into high school, from middle school, I was the guy, big time, 12, 13 years old, all of that, doing what I had to do. Ended up going to a small private school, Kings Ridge Christian School, 1A school. Transferred there from a bigger school because it was just more opportunities for me to be a little bit more educated, from the public school to the private school aspect of things, and more of a community. And it was a faith-based community as well. So going there it really blessed me. And from there it was just like, all right, like let me keep doing what I got to do. And freshman year ended up starting at receiver, and I switched from running back to receiver because I was like, all right, like all these years I've been playing running back, I'm taking so many more hits. I was like, all right, let me take a little less hits, go play receiver, just run past people, and then the ball can meet me instead of having to get the ball immediately and evade all of these people and all of these big guys hitting me all the time. I was like, and again, it was just something in my mind. I was just like, this stuff just makes sense. So let me switch. And I ended up making these switches and doing what I had to do. And, next thing you know, I'm in high school, taking care of business, being one of the household names in our region. And I made all region and all state and all of that stuff freshman year, sophomore year, whatever it is. I don't really remember all of that different accolades, but I was pretty good.
So when did Georgia State reach out? When did they become your school?
Yeah, so I remember Luke Heward, who was the offensive coordinator at the time. He came up to our school. I think it was this was probably my junior year, or just getting done with my junior year, and I didn't have any offers. Matter of fact, yeah, it was my junior year going into it. I didn't really have any offers or whatever. And he was like, he told me it was just another stop in his area to come see. And, usually like he'd come by just for kicks and giggles, like, all right, let me just check the school out. Cause we graduated with 63 people in my class. So, it was a really small school. But and my coach at the time, Coach Pick, he said he came in there and he was like, hey, you got any people, that would be able to play college ball. And he was like, oh yeah, like, honestly, Penny Hart, he's a pretty good player. And they got in touch, and then he called me out of class. I came down there, I met him. He was like, man, I remember, he was like, you got long arms, man. Like, I'm just like, I mean, yeah, cool. He was like, man, I want you to come to the camp that we having. And I was just like, all right, like, and I was like, man, I'm not going to Georgia State. Like, why would I go there? So I was like, I'm thinking about the bigger schools. At the time, I had been sending 50 to 100 emails a day to every school, going down the directory, staff directory of every school, Oregon, Alabama, Georgia, all of these, every school, D2 schools, NAIA schools, everybody. But I had the ego to be like, I'm not going to Georgia State, which is crazy to me. But I wanted to go somewhere out of the state, possibly. But he told me to come to the camp. I didn't think anything of it. That summer is coming around for my senior year. I still have no offers at the time. I'm like, you know what? I got to make something happen. At this point, I'm working out like 3 times a day. I would show up before we had team workouts, pull sleds by myself, leave so nobody would see me. Come back, work out with the team, leave there, go work at Studio Movie Grill at the time, running food and stuff like that. And after that, I would go back home to the neighborhood fitness center and I would work out like, and this was every day. I was like, man, I got to do something because this last year got to go crazy. And I remember him calling me and he was like, yo, like, Penny, we want you to come to the camp. And I was like, dang, like no college coach had ever reached out like this before. Cause at this point I had a bunch of letters, but nobody was showing interest. I had letters from Georgia, Duke, Charlotte at the time. And UNC Charlotte had just started a program. They had been hitting me up saying they want me to come and see some games and all of this stuff. Like, anticipation was building, but I was just like, you know what? Let me go. I remember he was saying he was at Babies R Us because he was about to have his daughter too. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. I was like, all right, I'll come to the camp. I end up going to the camp, ball out. They ended up offering me, Trent Miles and them offered me a scholarship right after the camp. And I was just like, yo, like this is crazy. Like what? Like I got a full ride to go play in college, and my mom was at the camp, and I go to her, and I'm like, I got an offer, and I don't think she really know what's happening, but she was like, good job, like. And at the time, the rival high school that I went to, the quarterback was there, and me and him was like, "Yo, let's lock in, let's do our thing, let's get this offer." And he ended up getting the offer. Aaron Winchester, shout out to him, man. We ended up both going to Georgia State, room together, lived together too. Man, it was special, but that was the day where I was just like, all right, like we doing this thing, like let's get it. I thought more offers were gonna come because that's what everybody was saying. Once you get the first one, they keep going, and none of them came in. And I was just like, all right, bet, like it's time for me to go run the city. Let's do it. So got to stay home and take care of business, and everything that happened after that was just like boom, like it just went. So
Penny, that's incredible. I think one of the things that you mentioned is you realized you had to keep getting to work. You had to, and I'm sure that coach
yeah,
saw that work too that you put in working
yeah.
three times a day, working out three times a day. And
Nah, he didn't know. Nobody I didn't want anybody seeing that. I was never one I never wanted to be flaunting or even show my hand to people. Like I never wanted that. I wanted to be able to be out there working out against my teammates without them even knowing that I worked out two or three times already and still going at everybody's necks, lifting heavier, running faster, running longer, playing better. Like, because without them even knowing, it was just like, I know that if I'm 10 times better than everybody here, but I work 1,000 times harder than everybody here, then the caliber of players that Alabama and all of these schools are looking for, I know that I can play at that level. And honestly, I really didn't even care about college competition too much. I was like, bro, I'm getting to the league. Like, I'm trying to get some cheese. You know what I'm saying? I need some bread. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to do some things. I'm trying to buy a house for my family. I'm trying to make some stuff happen. I'm trying to do some big things. So, you know, I never wanted anybody knowing what I was doing, even to this day. Like, it's just like I live a very private life, and I you know I don't really like showing too much of you know the spaces that are really intimate to me, because those are really intimate spaces. Those are spaces where those thoughts of can I really do it are hitting you, and you got to really decide, like, is this something that I want to do in terms of playing football or whatever the case might be that I may be working on. But those spaces where it's just me and whatever I'm working on, or where my vision of wherever I want to go, those are really intimate spaces. So I never really too much shared those with anybody. And a lot of people just couldn't hang with it. So if they was there, so, yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's one of those things, those dark spaces, and maybe not negative, but just those quiet spaces where you're working, where you're disappearing for a little while, and you come back and
Yeah.
you good. Yep, I'm good. Let's keep going. I think
You know
it's
what I'm saying?
important, man.
Yeah, 100%. So
So
yeah.
you get to Georgia State, you ball out there. How does the NFL start to transpire then?
Honestly, well, starting off my freshman year, I ended up being a freshman All American. I was about to ask the red shirt and everything. I ended up being a freshman All American. That was pretty amazing. Um, Ended up getting hurt. Then junior year, balled out again, American All American again. And then going into my senior year, it was just like, all right, I've done everything that I could do. But I only played 3 seasons in college. I redshirted because I broke my foot my second year. But I remember it was a game against Georgia Southern. Um, for everybody that don't know that team down south, we ended up we it was like the fourth quarter. I think we were down, and went up and caught a ball in a corner of the end zone on a corner route. They were playing man. They played cover two to it. The rest, the like all the plays before in the game where we were running. And I remember I couldn't even see the ball, and I was just like, catch the sun. Stacy Bailey was my receiver coach throughout high school, and he was like, man, you can't see the ball, catch the sun. So I went up, caught it, touchdown. And at that moment, I was like, I'm not just gonna go to the league. Like, I'm gonna make some stuff happen. Like, I'm really him. Like, I'm actually like I'm him. Like, I knew it before, but this was like a clutch moment, big time game, rivalry, down in a place, packed out, and got that play, got that catch, and it was just like, all right, like, I'm gonna take care of business. So, after that senior year, it didn't really go that well, but I was as complete of a player as I could possibly be. And I entered the draft and ended up going to the Reese Senior Bowl, but I fractured my L4 vertebrae all the way through, ended up going undrafted to the Colts. But Chris Ballard, all of those guys at that organization, they were just like, look, just come in and, rest up and get ready for camp. So they allowed me to do that, but I ended up coming back in grade two hamstring pull, first day back, after one-on-ones, I was balling too, doing my thing, and then pulled my hamstring pretty bad. Tried to fight through it, but, you know, ended up pulling it again a couple games after that, muffed a couple punts in a preseason game against the Bengals too. It was just all crumbling at that point. But that was my intro to the NFL, and I ended up back at home as well. So yeah.
Yeah, man, you battled through a lot of through injury, through what was those feelings like as your career kind of unfolded those 5 years, and I don't think people understand how short NFL careers. I mean, what the average is like less than 2 years or whatever it may be, and you
Yeah,
were
I
able
think
to.
it's like 3 or so, yeah, but, I mean, you gotta maximize every opportunity that you got. I think it's that, you know, a lot of guys that are in the league, you understand that I remember talking to the team one time, when I was in Seattle, and I was like, "Man, think about a quarterback or a center, they play the most snaps out of anybody on the team. If the QB has 70 snaps, each play is 3 seconds. That's 210 seconds. If I'm doing my math right, that's anywhere between like 3 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, that's about 3 minutes.
3 minutes and some change. It's just like, man, you have 3 minutes per game at the most if you're a quarterback, you got 3 minutes at the most to make an impact, to let it be known that you fighting for the guy that's next to you, that you fighting for your family, that you want to be the best. You have a total of 3 minutes because each play is around 3 seconds. And if they playing 70 snaps or you playing 10 snaps, guess what? You got 30 seconds at that point. So it's just like maximizing every opportunity. And I broke it down like that every time I would be tired or every time I'm thinking about, how my body is hurting. I'm like, man, you got a max of 3 seconds and you don't know what's going to happen after this. You don't know if will ever be able to play again. You don't know any of that. So honestly, when you talk about a short time span in a league, it was long for me because I was thinking like that. Those 5 years, I felt like I played 10 years in the league, to be honest with you. But yeah, man, just maximizing each and every moment and cherishing it, being grateful for it, and appreciating it for what it is. Because a lot of people say they would love to be in that position, but more than that, it was what I worked for my entire life. It was something that I didn't shake from in any doubt in any way, shape, or form, even when I was at home for 6 or 7 weeks and ended up getting a call from Seattle to go work out. And, um, I was just like, look, I'm not coming back to Atlanta. Like, and I didn't end up coming back. I stayed there for 4 years, made a name for myself. And, it's a reason why we sitting here right now. So, yeah, man, it was special, but just maximizing each and every second, each and every millisecond, each and every moment, and being present and just doing what I had to do, man, and appreciating the life, even now that I live now as a result of the beautiful game of football.
That's beautifully said, man. You transition out of football. What was kind of next on your path then, and how did those experiences from football shape what you're doing?
Yeah, so going in, I always had a mindset of, I wanted to get something more out of it than just football. So building relationships with a lot of the guys and, doing business and, through NFL, going to different programs in the off season and then having the opportunity to go to a Harvard Business crossover program for athletes and learning about contract negotiation and all these things. Like, it turned on a light bulb that was bigger than I ever could imagine. I remember Russell Wilson, he was the first person to ever call me brilliant. And it stuck with me because from that moment, I was just like, you know what? I think I know what I want to start getting into. I'm really good at managing contracts and reading fine print and things of that nature through contract negotiation, through the Harvard Business crossover program with Professor Anita Ellerby's. And, I ended up getting second in it was like a contest to see who could negotiate the best contract. And I came in second. And I was just like, dang, like, but I'm really good at this. So from there, my idea started to like, how can I blend this with the game of football that I love and be administering help and things to other players like myself. And through that, I also did my own contract my second year in the league when I was between agents. So it was just like these things were just happening, and boom, next thing you know, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start a consulting business and I'm going to teach players the contract language in their contracts, and I ended up starting Vee Bee Cee Consulting that I have now. And it's been a blessing just to see the light that we're able to help other people continue to brighten and turn on and think about what is actually the language in their contracts, and it's not pushing anybody out of that space of contract negotiation, but I think we all need to understand our business as athletes and knowing what we're reading and what we're signing. And because it gave me a different perspective about what I wanted to do. And now, being done with ball, it's been a transition, but I have vision because I put myself in different atmospheres to be able to segue into this part of my life.
Penny, I appreciate you said different atmospheres. I think it's one of those important things where, as many players do, they have their agent, they sign the dotted line, and you don't realize
Yeah.
till 20 years, 5, 10 years down the road that it was a terrible deal. I
Mhm.
think it helps too the fact that you've been in those shoes. So it's not
Yeah.
like you reading what you read in Harvard Business School, which was important, but it's also you
Mhm.
experiencing that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that even for people, regardless of what contracts they're signing, agents have too much going on to sit there and walk a player through exactly what the contract is saying through the collective bargaining agreement. It is on the player to know that this is what the organization is expecting from them, and what their league rules are. Like, it's important to know those things, and for me, I think knowing those things helped me have a little bit more longevity in the league, because it started helping me understand how the business was ran. And for me, it made so much more sense. And like, all right, I see that everybody is going over here trying to be a returner. Let me go over here and let me block up front, because then I can sustain a little bit longer. I can work the business a little bit more. And then, being around guys like Bobby Wagner, Richard Sherman, different guys who did their own contracts before, having the opportunity to be around them, and they are giving me game on what books to read and how they did what they did. And I was nowhere near the level of a player that they were, but I was just wanting to learn on how to create something that would be sustainable at the end of my career, because I remember we were playing and my mindset was always like to do business and think past football. But I remember after my rookie year, Russ stood up and was talking to everybody, and he was like, "Have start with an ending in mind. All the young players, you got to have an ending in mind, and what you want to do with this thing." And from there, it was just like, I'm already on it, and that's exactly what I want to do. So um, it's been a blessing. It's been a huge blessing. I'm thankful as well, because a lot of guys through this process end up getting depressed, and you see these stories about things that are happening. And I can honestly say, feeling at 7 on in the fall, on October, on a Sunday at 1 p.m., and you sitting down on a couch and you just like, why do I have all this energy? And it's just like, dang, you would have been playing at that time, and having to figure out what to do with all of that energy, trying to figure out what to do with all of your time when you were playing from the time you were 5 up until, a moment when you're 20 or 30, or whenever you get done playing. Nobody is exempt. It happens where you have this moment of like, okay, there's people around that weren't around before, or people that aren't around before that were around before. The cheering is kind of like come to a halt a little bit in terms of how people may respect you or care about you or quote unquote love you, because now the game is not there anymore. So it's important for people to not put their identity so heavily in it. But for us, in playing that long from the time we were kids, it's kind of hard not to. But I think that as going forward, people should definitely be thinking about who they want to be after they're done. Even though you got to put all of it into the game, like, make sure you keep the main thing, but you are bigger than the game. So think further after the game. And that's just something that I was blessed to do, having the parents that I have, having the community of people that I have, the support that I had at each and every team, from the Colts to the Seahawks to the Falcons. Just about everybody from my community, Kings Ridge, Georgia State, like, You know what I mean? I go all the way back to when I was at elementary school. You know what I mean? Just it's the everybody that I came across, every community that I came across. Everybody played an instrumental role in allowing me to have certain levels of exposure in different atmospheres to think bigger. And I thank God more than anything. And I thank myself for putting in the work to be able to be there and do it. So, it's a blessing, man.
Penny, that's great. I mean, and so much of it is that exposure and the atmosphere. And I mean, I agree completely with having those people in your corner every step of the way. Of course, not
Mhm.
everyone's going to be with you the entire time. You can't
Right.
take all your friends to Georgia State. You can't take all your friends to the NFL. But it is
Man.
really special when you look back. And, when I lived in Atlanta, I had a couple friends that would come visit me, but I had a bunch more back home saying, hey, this is really
Mhm.
cool what you're doing. You know, go for it. And I think that
Man,
community thing's huge, man.
it is. It's really big. And even if people aren't openly supporting you, people that are not telling you that you can't do it is very important as well. Because the silence in that space of silence that people aren't telling you you can't do it, it's allowing you to fill it with positivity and fill it with your own vision. So, I mean, I'm grateful to just be able to be on this platform. Shout out to you. I see you got the nice setup in the back too, man. That's crazy.
Appreciate it, man.
But this opportunity to just be able to get on here. I love, hopping on podcasts and, hopping on shows, especially with people who got some ties to the city, ties to Georgia State, to just chop it up and talk a little bit of ball, talk a little bit of life.
Absolutely, man. So, title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What are you working on right now? What do you got going on?
Yeah, still doing my business, Vee Bee Cee Consulting. Y'all can check that out if y'all don't follow me on Instagram, Penny Hart 18. On TikTok, Penny Hart 19, doing some fun stuff on there, but doing my consulting business, helping pro potential athletes, empowering them with tools for contract management, understanding and contract language through individual consulting, taking care of that, and got a documentary that will be coming out called "What's Next," about this transition period, about the time I got a concussion with the Falcons and being a little bit more vulnerable because I am a closed book for the most part, went to the open eye, but working on that right now. Shout out Dakota, shout out to the whole team, and yeah, it's on the way, man. Got a lot of special things coming that are going to be able to give people an inside look into what I'm doing and what this world that I live in is all about.
Well, Penny, I want to say thanks again, man, for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
We'll talk soon.
All right, man.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.